Good evening, everyone. This is the Zoning Board of Appeal, Wednesday, September 5th, September 5th hearing. So starting off this evening, we have two cases that we're going to be hearing. The first is case number 17-18, Paul Burke, 1 Winthrop. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just the other.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which one we do.
No, you can do that one first. Doesn't matter.
The order. So Paul Burke, 1 Winthrop Street. This is an application for a special permit under 6C8D of the zoning bylaw to allow the installation of a wooden fence 6 feet high in height, 64 feet length, parallel to Pemberton Street, and 24 feet in length, parallel to Winthrop Street. Okay. So would you like to come up and
Look at the pictures.
present your application?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Craig, do you want to discuss whether we're gonna move forward with this?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the first matter we'll
Right.
talk to her about, because, I mean, they can, as,
I don't even think we can
State,
open.
we can
I
go
don't
into
think we
that.
can open it either.
We can open it.
I think we
We
have to
can,
open
we,
it.
we have to open
Right.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to
Open.
open it, and then we have to discuss with
Yeah.
them, you know, what they wanna do.
Okay.
This is the guy that.
You know, in light of that.
Hmm?
Okay.
Do I need to speak in the mic, or can I speak to you guys?
If you would speak into the
Sure.
mic, because we also are televised and it's recorded. So, and if you would start with your name and address for the record.
My name's Catherine Burke. I don't know, is that on? Hi.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm here with Paul, and he's probably going to come up and help me with this. I think I just overheard you speaking about this possibly as something else. We just found out this afternoon as far as maybe applying for a variance versus a special permit. There was several questions when we filled out the paperwork, and Paul made numerous visits down to the zoning board and the building inspector, so I'm not really sure where to go with this, but can I just explain about the fence? Can I start with that? Like, what do you need to know from me?
Yeah, so the first question is, so this board is empowered by the town bylaws to either hear applications for special permit or for variances. It's the bylaw that states whether, under a particular bylaw, this board is empowered by the town to hear a special permit. So in other words, a special permit is something that you're allowed to do, but only under certain circumstances, so the board hears those special circumstances in the form of a special permit.
Okay.
And then we determine whether that use fits that special circumstances that's permitted.
Okay.
Other bylaws don't necessarily empower this board to hear a use, such as a fence, under a special permit. Sometimes there's just a real strict bylaw that it's allowed or it's not allowed. In which case, the application simply says, we have a very unusual circumstance, so we can't comply literally with the bylaw, and therefore we are seeking a variance, meaning effectively permission not to completely comply with the bylaw. That's a variance. So looking, the section which you applied under, which is
6Z and 8D.
6C8D.
Yep.
So if we look at the bylaw to that section,
Probably into the side yard.
yeah,
I got page
Special.
46.
yeah.
On page 45.
6C8D, yeah. So it's talking about the setback and side yard for other uses. And it says under D, consistent with other special conditions, a fence or above-ground wall, provided that no such wall and no solid fence shall have a height of more than 3 feet at any point beyond the street and the required minimum setback line, or more than 6 feet at any other point. So it doesn't say that the zoning board can grant a special permit. So therefore, what we're saying is, basically you applied for something that doesn't exist under the bylaw, which is a special permit. Also, sometimes when people make mistakes, there are certain things that we can kind of correct when the public is here. That's usually when the relief you're seeking is the same or less than what has been advertised. In this case, a variance is a greater relief. And so therefore, effectively, there hasn't been enough notice to your abutters that you might be seeking a variance as opposed to a special permit. So we could proceed tonight because we can hear any application, but effectively, we don't have the power to grant what you're asking for,
Okay.
okay? So the other court.
They're gonna have to come back at a later date.
And
It's gonna have to be re-advertised,
Right.
Okay.
and
So-
we'll talk about how procedurally that can.
Okay, so just a couple of questions. When we realized that, it was too high and we were visited by the building inspector, I'm not sure where the breakdown was because Paul, I'm just not really, we've got it all highlighted what we needed, so I'm not really, like we.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know it either. So
So,
what I
and-
would recommend is, and we have, the board inquired to the building commissioner, who is also the zoning board enforcement officer, and he's at least of the opinion, again, you can go back and talk to him, that he did advise you that the relief you would need to seek is a variance.
Okay, so when we were completing the paperwork, we even have the packet that was completely highlighted by the it's just, I guess my question with this is that we did pay a ton of money to have somebody come out and do like all the plotting.
Yes.
Like, is that not pertinent to a variance?
So, no, you still will need that.
Oh, perfect, okay.
Okay,
'Cause
we're still gonna need that in the future, but
Okay.
for right now, you didn't apply for the correct
I understand that,
relief,
right
which
now.
is a variance. You also spent money on notifying the neighbors and spent money having it advertised in the Walpole Times, correct? With the application,
We?
the application.
Oh,
Application fee. You
So-
paid an application fee.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But where you did, the building inspector signed the paper, because I looked at this today, the building inspector signed the paper where you stated what you were going to do, which was a special permit. It shouldn't be a special permit, it has to be a variance. The town will pay for the refiling fee, because it's a mistake on the town's part.
Oh, I so appreciate that, because we had gone back and forth, and I was like, where did the breakdown happen? So not trying to blame, but like,
I know,
I
and-
want, it's a process, I want to understand it, so.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you want me to do? Like, what should I do at this point?
So, with your permission, we can basically, you can request that your application be withdrawn without prejudice, which means that you can refile and we can waive the fees on the refiling. The refiling is the variance. And then we put it on the next agenda as soon as it can be advertised. And then we can come back and we can hear it.
Okay, so
Okay.
appreciate it. I really
Also, I
appreciate
just want to point out,
I need-
so that you are prepared for that meeting. This thing would give you pages. So you're flipping through this. Okay. If you look at page 9 of the bylaw,
Okay,
which talks about variances,
okay,
it explains what you as an applicant have to demonstrate in order to get a favorable support from the board for a variance. In other words, the town passes laws and they expect everybody is going to comply with the law. The purpose of a variance is to deal with unusual circumstances. There's something that is different in your case than every other property owner in town. And so if you read through the variance, it explains, you know, basically what your burden is to prove as part of your application. And so we'll be looking for, you talked about some material that you had prepared, and that you spent money preparing. I would recommend that you look over the bylaw and make sure that material that you've prepared basically addresses the questions that are here, because that's what we will be looking for.
Oh, the material was having somebody come out and do like plot, like,
Yep.
yeah, is that?
That would be
Oh.
part of it.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
that's right. But I would read through that bylaw,
Read it,
the
okay.
variance, and, you know, basically it's saying,
You have to come up with
yeah,
something.
a variance is a high standard, because effectively, this board is setting aside the bylaws that the town has decided. The way the fences they want and the fences they don't want, right? And you're saying our situation is unique and different in a very substantial way that we just can't, without establishing an enormous burden on you, different, that wouldn't be the same as everybody else in town, if you had to comply literally with the laws of the town, right? So that's why a variance needs to be advertised separately, because it's a higher standard,
Got it.
okay?
Can I just ask, like, I don't mean to, I know
Yeah.
everybody's, can you, somebody just, I don't know if you know this information, what exactly is the law for a fence?
Okay.
Like, I just would
So-
love, because I've looked through and I
Yep.
don't, nothing's clear.
And I'm becoming an expert on fences this evening, too.
Fabulous.
We can take cases on that. So, because you are right next to the road,
Yep,
the corner lot, but also adjacent to the roadway, any road, the town does not want to have 6-foot-high fences along the roadway. So therefore, what's required is you could have a 3-foot-high fence where your current fence is, but you can't have a 6-foot-high fence,
Solid.
a solid fence. If you went back from the roadway 6 feet, I believe it,
It's
as
I think
I
it's
read
6
this.
feet.
If you went back 6 feet from the roadway, you could have a 6-foot-high fence. But right now, based on the plot plan that you submitted, one of your fence posts is right on the, it's, yeah, right there
Yep.
on the line.
Yeah.
So your fence, which is currently in place, would not normally be allowed, and that's why you have to ask for a variance.
okay, and just like a quick question, like, so, the 6 feet from the road, are you talking about from the footpath or from where the road is?
So it's actually from the town layout of the road, which it's
We're
not-
there, we're
it's
definitely at 6 feet, like, from the road.
you might be from the road, but
The
you're not
road.
from the town property. The
Right.
town property goes
Into
probably
your yard.
into your yard.
Oh, does it?
It's measured from your lot line, the
It
end of
is,
your property.
okay. So you're talking from my lot line all the way
Right.
in 6 feet? Okay.
Right.
And that's not necessarily from the sidewalk.
Right.
Okay, because the town actually owns, everybody, people think that they own right up to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
The town owns
Got
many
ya.
people's front lawns,
Yeah.
a little bit of it.
All right, no, this is good information. And
And
then,
if you think about it, building a 6-foot solid fence right up against the road, people can't see
When you're
if they're
coming up
driving or they're
Winthrop,
turning. So if they're going
Yeah.
from Winthrop Street onto
Pemberton.
Pemberton, right? Basically, a 6-foot tall fence that's solid creates a visual barrier
Yeah.
that they can't see turning out. And so therefore, the town passed this rule that says either you locate it back in your property so that people can see around it, or you make a non-solid so that people can see through it. Or if you're on a very unique piece of property that, like nobody else in town lives on a corner lot, right? Then, maybe there's a unique circumstance in your case compared to anybody else who lives on the corner of 2 roads,
I have one in a corner lot, and I had to slope down by the corner. That's how I had to handle it.
can you say that last part? I
I had to slope down by where you have that one on Winthrop.
Yeah.
You could do a 3-foot and then go up as you're going, because that way the people that are coming out of Winthrop and look left,
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sorry. But, and again, I apologize, because I know it's gonna be.
You're doing
Okay,
good.
You're here.
You gotta learn somehow, you're doing great.
Really interesting. So this brings up another point. So we, for the last 4 years, have had little bushes, like trees.
Mhm.
So, and they came down and then they went like this, and then the fence is inside those bushes.
Yep.
Not on the outside.
Yep.
So,
It's actually, you have an interesting case. One, you built the fence already, okay, that's, normally people come here first.
Right,
That's okay.
sorry.
That's okay, we can deal with that.
Yep.
But the other interesting thing is, the trees are actually probably what is causing you the visual, causing drivers the visual problem. Because they're outside the fence. Because I've been up there, I'm sure the other board members have gone up there to take a look at it. It's the trees that are blocking the sight line.
Yeah.
but they've been up for 4 years.
We're dealing with the fence.
Right,
okay?
that's what I thought.
And, it's an interesting
Oh,
situation
gosh.
where the fence is blocking some of the vision,
Oh,
but the trees are outside, they're closer to the road than the fence.
right.
So-
What does that mean?
You still can't see when you're
We're-
driving.
we're not here to deal with the trees.
trees.
Right.
We're talking about the fence. And the fence right now is too close to the road. And you should be asking for a variance, and then we'll take it all into consideration.
The town wrote a bylaw talking about fences. They didn't talk about trees or bushes, and you could say, well, either could become a visual barrier. And there was in fact a house that was on Washington and East, I think. They had tall bushes and they were on the corner. And it wasn't a zoning issue, but it was a public safety, and the town worked with them to remove or trim down the bushes there. So the point is that if you come back and say, well, what about the bushes? Completely understand, except that's not in the bylaw, so it's not something that we would hear. It's something that the police, in the public safety might address, but that's outside of us. So we're just gonna focus on the fence.
I appreciate it.
And I just want you to, again, there was the corner of East and Washington, that was bushes. Suzanne has dealt with other locations where they've dealt with it. So this is not a new
Okay.
dilemma for the town. And so under a variance, you either have to come up with a plan that's going to modify your fence to bring it into compliance, and that's something to work with the zoning enforcement officer about, or you have to come up with an explanation of how your property is different from other properties on corners, that we should kind of set aside the bylaw and say, well, you're gonna comply with the spirit of it, but not necessarily the literal interpretation of it. That's what a variance says.
And if there wasn't something really out of the ordinary that would cause you to have a fence that big, your first option where the town would work with you to like try to figure something out, does that happen during a variance hearing, or like does that happen, like how does that go? I'm
No.
just confused.
That would be with Dave down the hall.
And Dave, is he like the building inspector?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would work with them on finding how to slope the fence. That's what, if it was my yard,
Right.
that's what I had to do and I have a corner lot. And they make chunks at fence companies that slope.
No, I know exactly
You know what I
you're
mean?
talking
And that way, when you're driving out of Winthrop and you're gonna take the left, and you wanna look for a little kid, 6 feet, you're not seeing much in your car. But if it's sloped to 3 feet,
We
at least you
actually, our
can
lot
see.
is actually sloped down a little bit
Is it?
anyway. Yeah, our lot is sloped down.
Bring those kind of pictures in.
I think we,
Sit someone in a car.
Okay.
And take a pic.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff's great evidence if you are on a slope.
Sorry.
And you are a little bit.
But Paul, we are definitely, when you come down, we're definitely low, like, we're lower, like it goes
Yeah.
up, like.
And that's one of the things in a variance is the slope of the property. So bring
Right.
pictures in
So
that
that's
show
stuff that
that, yeah.
gentleman,
I would sit somebody right in a car and show what you
take pictures.
Yeah.
And bring
Yeah.
us pictures.
Bring them in.
All right, I
And
appreciate
say it may be 6 feet from where you're measuring it, but
Right,
from
but
where
not-
the road is, you know,
Here's the problem.
it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I so appreciate your time.
Sure. So
Right. They
Yeah.
may have to.
you are requesting for us to withdraw your application without prejudice?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then you can refile the
And
variance.
so the refiling process, just to be sure, I have to do more paperwork?
Yep, you'll have to,
Yes.
yes. And Amy, can she work with you on?
And
on-
David.
And Dave, in the refiling?
Yeah, that's fine.
And make sure that it's,
Yep.
it's done as a variance, and that's the correct way to do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Amy,
no
can I come
fees.
down and see you some point, like
Yeah.
next week or something?
Sure,
Awesome.
I'm here.
So appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, take
Okay,
it.
hold on. I think we
I'll
have-
make a motion on behalf of the applicant to withdraw their application without prejudice and for the filing fees to be waived were they to refile.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much for your time and your help.
Thanks.
Okay.
Amy, what do we have for September 25th?
Just
Is that enough
1900
time?
Main
Just
and
for the notice?
Maud Terrace.
Lady. Who, once again, still has a cease and desist probably. But, so these guys aren't gonna make that
Bye
date
now.
anyway, so.
No, they'll be October.
Right, okay.
What else I have? Okay, so, next application I have is case number 1818 Brookside Village, Walpole, 164 Pine Street. And this is an application for a variance under 6C8D of the zoning bylaw to allow the installation of a 8-foot stockade fence. We're enjoying that section tonight. So, somebody, applicant? Somebody here? Yes, so
Okay.
yeah, so we've also heard that there may have been an issue with respect to noticing the application. Is this something new? Oh, okay. Yeah, so do we have information, where are we getting this information from?
A gentleman came in to the office
That's what-
today.
That's what Kate had said.
Did we get his address? He said he was a direct abutter. A gentleman came into the zoning office today, a direct abutter, I didn't get his name, was not notified. And the town of Sharon was not notified. They have to be notified also.
I just notified the people that the assessors informed me to know.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So the question is whether the assessor's list was complete and accurate. Now, so what that means is, there's a question, if it was not sufficiently noticed to the abutters, then that, that's kind of a constitutional issue.
Did we comply with the law by advertising as per the Board of Assessors? Did we do that, so? Didn't
So-
we comply with the law by
Yes,
notifying?
so it was incomplete. You advertised correctly, you notified the Walpole residents, but because the abutters in Sharon within 300 feet were not notified, that's where there's a problem. So you have some abutters that legally should have been notified and they were not notified. It wasn't your fault. We should have referred you, or Walpole should have got the abutters list from the Sharon assessors for this piece of property. So it's incomplete. People were not notified that should have been notified, and they have, they're direct abutters. This isn't like people that live 250 feet away. It's people that live right there, on the property line. Okay.
How
So-
should I proceed?
One second, did you have some information on,
Yes, I'm the direct abutter.
there you go. If you wanna-
Garmerman,
Yes.
we got it right here.
This is this request for a variance to an 8-foot fence affects us directly.
Yeah.
And it's in the middle, it's not in the middle of the woods, it's in the woods, it's not on a road, but, as this previous applicant, heard 3-foot to 6-foot
Mhm.
Right.
fence was.
Right,
So in terms of the most affected party,
You're the man.
And I
Yep.
know about it, I knew about the application, and then I just made inquiry about when is the hearing, and I was told.
You weren't
So,
notified, yeah.
In that regard,
Well,
So-
you knew about, well, irregardless.
How did he know?
I knew that
Can you
the
ask him how he knew
application
about the
had been
hearing?
filed. I didn't know when the
Yeah,
hearing
I was
was.
gonna, but it's not really,
It was previous
it's
to
not.
the
The
final.
point is that, you know, so there may have possibly one notice, but then there's also the Sharon, the town of Sharon. So really, we can't hear the case because it was not properly noticed, not necessarily through your fault. But, you know, again, and then of course, even if you were to be granted favorable relief, you know, that could be challenged through an appeal process. So, you know, this could really not help your time. Yes, sir.
When the predecessor, the people who permitted the property in the first place, there's files for them who they noticed at the planning board. There can't be any other abutters other than the ones that they had notified at that point. So
Well-
that would be a resource.
Sometimes people move though, so you have to get updated as you know,
Okay.
as most of
It's
So-
not,
so-
this isn't hard to correct.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not hard to
No,
correct.
this is a
So it's
no-brainer.
very similar to the last one in the fact that, you know, again, emotion,
It's
well,
even
first of all, we
easier.
can't hear it, so, you know, with withdraw the application without
Exactly.
prejudice, you know, again, we can have it, if you reapply and renotice, the board can waive the application fee that covers the noticing, and the advertisement.
So I go back to the Walpole assessors, or do I need to go to Sharon? Because I've never done that before, to go to another town.
I think you do
No,
it.
I think
Oh, no?
he
Does-
doesn't have to do it, does he?
I
No,
don't
the
know.
town would do it.
I thought
I've
so.
done this a
think you
few
could-
times, and I've never gone to two towns together.
I would
know
think
how,
they
John?
would.
Are you instructing me to
The-
do that? or not?
No, wait a
First off,
minute.
we're not gonna instruct anybody to do anything, we're not gonna give any legal advice tonight. But the way it usually works on the town line is the town, in this case, the town of Walpole will provide the assessors list of abutters for Walpole, and then the Walpole zoning board will contact Sharon and say, could we have the abutters list within 300 feet of this property?
Okay.
The zoning board will get that, the Walpole zoning board will get that list of Sharon residents and then provide it to you.
To the applicant.
To the applicant to notice. In this case, I think we've said that because it's been a mistake, we're going to
Waive.
waive that, and you'll work with the Walpole zoning board, and they will notify the Sharon residents, and also the town of Sharon should be notified. It gets complicated when we're right on the town line on cases like this, and you live in Sharon, correct?
Except for my back lot line, which is Walpole.
Okay, so you actually own some Walpole property? Do you pay taxes to the town of Walpole?
No,
Okay,
no.
that answers that question,
So that's,
just to clarify, John,
probably is
you
not-
said the zoning board would request that assessor's list. It's really you can go to we don't have to, this board does not request it from the town of Sharon, right? The town assessor in Walpole can make contact to the town assessor.
Well, that's what I would think.
Like, we don't have to
Yeah.
make a vote or anything like that. That's
No,
all
he
I'm saying.
doesn't have to.
No, and we don't have to, we're not taking action in that regard. You mentioned zoning board, I think, when you were speaking, and I didn't know if you
Well,
meant
it's on,
the town assessor.
they're filing, the applicant is filing with the Walpole zoning board,
Right,
and we need to provide the legal notice to the Walpole residents and
Sharon.
the Sharon
right,
residents.
right. Just, but in terms of getting that information, you're not getting it from this board. You're getting it
Correct.
from the assessor.
Right, we don't have that information,
Right,
you're right.
right.
It's, the assessors have that.
okay.
One other question, we had spoken, before this was filed, and again this evening, I noticed that the application recites a wood stockade fence.
But we're not going to, I appreciate that, and because there's been a notification issue, we can't hear the substance because we could prejudice when we come back.
I have a question.
Okay.
When he withdraws, you said you can withdraw it and refile.
Yes.
Is he gonna have to fill out another piece of paper, or is that piece of paper gonna be, you know, taken out and stamped back in again?
The application is referred to.
The
No,
application.
Yeah, the application, no, it's a new application with a new notification, you know, so it's a new filing. It's not any of the same. Now, obviously, he may have some material here that he sent to the board as part of his application, and he can reuse that in his future application. But the application itself is a new application with a complete notification, so it goes to all the abutters so that they have awareness that there's going to be a hearing. So, you know, you may have, through a process other than the notice to the abutters, have learned of the hearing, but your neighbors may not, so
I
we.
understand that. The question was, does he have to change the word? Is it a new piece of paper that he writes final on?
He
and
can
writes
change it if he
next
wants.
Rather than why?
Oh, yeah,
He can change it.
As opposed to the piece of paper that's in there now.
Yes.
Right, not the piece of paper that's here now.
New piece of
It's a new application, and he can change the application when he refiles it. Yep.
But hopefully you guys will talk, and
We had
Yeah.
thought, being as the, I don't know the mechanics of this, getting the list of people to be notified, but it sounds like one files something and then notice lists are generated by the towns. Is
correct.
Yep.
Right.
We filed the application and only one of two notice lists was generated.
Right, from one of the two towns. And
Yep.
that sounds like where the mishaps occurred. So my apologies to everybody.
Oh, there it is.
I know it's a little bit more process,
Throwing
but,
it back
you
at
know,
him.
we want to make sure we conduct under due process. So,
And request, withdrawal without prejudice.
okay, so I will make a motion to accept the applicant's request for withdrawal without prejudice, and to, if the applicant chooses to refile, to waive the application fee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Will Amy request if others list from the assessors? Should I do that?
When you reapply, go through the same process as you did before, and we'll make sure.
We'll make sure Sharon is on that. Make sure to get Sharon on that.
Yeah, so.
So I did notify the town of Sharon. It just wasn't the abutters of Sharon, obviously.
Yeah, so we should just double check our procedures on that and make sure it's up to date. I think it's reasonable, you know, confusion.
Yeah.
I think we just need to fine tune that.
I actually
For the
didn't know how it
future.
worked. I've
Who
never.
did you notify in Sharon?
Was it the planning board?
Planning board?
Okay.
The abutting towns.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And I don't know the procedure through
Press that?
the,
You're all set.
yes.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you.
evening, thanks for coming.
All right, so
You know, meet whether the assessors normally do that, or you can request it a certain way, I don't have that information. I imagine Kate would know, right?
Yeah.
Kate would know. So we'll just, you know, and then make an update in our process.
But Katie thought he was from Walpole.
So that's the confusion.
Katie called me today and said a Walpole guy came, but he just got confused too and kinda indicated he had Walpole property.
Yeah.
So I can see how Katie might have got confused.
But I cleared that up pretty
You
fast.
cleared it
Yeah.
right up, John. Good job.
That's
So-
No,
exactly.
but that's when Katie called me, she said, there's a gentleman here from
60 foot
Walpole,
all
never mind
question,
Sharon. I'm
pay
like,
taxes.
good, you know?
Hey, we're still on the
I
air?
know one time
Oh,
one of
we
my
will.
dads got left
So,
off.
next item on the agenda, do we want to just clear out minutes? I think we only have the August 15th, not the July 25th. So we'll do July 25th as our next meeting.
You'll have those tomorrow.
What?
You'll have those minutes tomorrow.
Oh, I'll be waiting.
Any questions or issues on the August 15th minutes? Anybody want to make a motion?
Very lengthy.
Yeah. I guess it's all right that I'm listed as, I would rather have it be listed that I was not involved in review and discussion of Wood Partners, whatever the heck that was, but I think it's the 40B by Walmart.
Yeah.
I can't like even think about it, even, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
If you could put that in,
Yeah.
just it doesn't say. So someone reading this may think I, because it, obviously I'm here, that I did not participate.
Will do.
Please.
Anything else? Motion,
Make a motion to
Recommended.
accept the minute. make a motion to accept the Board of Appeal minutes of August 15th with the amendment that Suzanne Murphy was not involved in this review and discussion of the Wood Partners Local Preference Marketing Plan.
Nice job, Jane. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, business, reorganization.
I abstained on that. 'Cause I
Oh,
was
the
in-
last
I
one,
was-
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I always abstain when I'm absent too, but people say you can vote, but I always do, I always
bigger.
abstain. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wait, what are
I
you
guess-
abstaining?
Because he was absent.
The minutes,
Oh, okay.
acceptance of minutes. Okay, so, so we need to go through and each position,
Reorg.
so reorg. Do we wanna start with chairman? And then, because that can, who knows whether that will
Domino
open up-
down.
No, domino down,
Down to
right.
the peons like me.
So, I'm just gonna open it up for discussion then.
All right, I would like to nominate John Lee
I would second that.
because I know he's done it for years. I don't know how many years you were over there, John, but it had to be more than 10 or around 10.
Oh, it was 16.
16, thank you, in Sharon. And before that, previously on this board for
No,
years.
Planning board.
Planning board. You
with
weren't
you.
on this one?
No, never.
Oh, that was your dad, sorry. And I'm getting confused with your board memory. And so I would just like to nominate him. I think he would move things along. I think he would do a good job.
And he's right downtown, so
And he
if
does
there's any
have-
need
Right,
for somebody to get there
he has,
during the day, he has the
Access.
flexibility to zip down there and back if need be.
put the kids in detention and race down to town hall. Those poor kids. No, I nominate John myself.
And I would second that nomination.
Any other discussion?
No, I mean, I think there are a lot of great candidates, John one of them, so I don't have any objection.
Okay, so do we wanna make a motion?
I will make a motion for John Lee to be our next chairman.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, so there's the other positions, I mean, we
Vice.
should, vice, we should go through.
Yes. I don't know if anyone's interested, but I would be glad to nominate you, Craigie, if you're interested.
Yes,
I-
I would agree with that.
Thanks, I would say probably with work schedule, it may be a bad idea,
Might be tough.
yeah. So if there's other interest on the board,
That means
Then-
clerk's a bad idea too.
yeah, I would say.
Well, how about Suzanne?
Want me? Bob?
Mhm. Bob, that's true, I thought Bob
He's
is.
just learning the clerk thing, good.
No, the reason
Well,
I didn't
I
say
would
Bob
get
is I
yelled
knew
at.
you just started on the clerk thing, but certainly,
yeah.
No, I'm happy to do either, but I think if, what I'm hearing from Craig is that he's too busy to be the clerk as well, so I'm happy to stay in the clerk's position, but if you want me to be
Those are
vice
yours,
chair,
I
I'm
was
happy
about to
to
put
do
'em on.
that, but, then we would need to find, one of you two would become the clerk, would be the consequence.
I'd rather do vice. Definitely.
absolutely.
And I make a motion to have Suzanne as vice chairman and Bob remain as clerk.
I'll second that.
You okay with that, Craig?
Sure. All those in favor?
Aye.
So that's it.
Easy,
Okay.
quick.
Good.
Easy peasy.
I'll make, yeah. do
He's
you wanna
over there
make a
looking at
motion?
us.
I don't know if we've
Go
had
ahead.
any, just a quick question on
Yep.
associate members. We talked last time about whether we should put out a press release or invite,
you know
do
anyone?
something like that. I don't, but I don't know if there's been
Have we
any
heard
activity
from
on that end.
the
Is anybody-
selectman's office at all?
Nobody's-
No.
okay.
and
I'll
no
reach
one's-
out to the
no one's
selectmen.
called or inquired
And
about
Okay.
it.
remind them that we need to have
Yeah.
new members.
New
And if we're
blood.
still on the, are we still on the air? Any members of the Walpole community that want to
Come on down.
show interest in the zoning board, we're looking for associate
Idea to do it
members.
now.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's a good idea.
That was a good idea.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
Good evening.
Good evening.